Once you install the device, the ToltHawk device in the field, one of the things we want to know is what are we basing the water depth what are we basing it off of? And in our case, in typically you base it on the ground level just beneath the sensor. So it would be approximately right there. But it's up to you. You can base it also, some people like to base it off of the bottom of the river. So anyway, whatever you base it on, that's the water depth we are going to show you in the dashboard. Um, so once you'd establish what that reference point is, also known as the ground level, you want to measure it how far it is from the bottom of the device. Now, this is kind of important information. We want to know how far that reference point is, how from the bottom of the device. So basically, what we are interested in is this particular level that this arrow is going to show you. So from the bottom of the device to that reference point. And this is what we called in ToltHawk as the ground level. Okay, so now this being the ground level or the reference level, now the device itself, the sensor, it is only capable of sensing how far the water is from the device. So in other words, what it does is, it goes and senses this level, how far the water is from the device. It is not able to sense how far the ground is from the device, just the the how far the water surface is from the device itself. But that's okay, because once we know what the ground level is, we subtract this to get the actual ground level, which is the water level, which is about this. Okay. So when we show in the ToltHawk dashboard, what we actually are showing is this depth of the water, and that is that comes from the ground level minus the sensed level. Okay. So in other words, the depth, if I were to write it down over here, the depth will be equal to ground level minus sensed level. And that's basically the formula that we use to find the depth, which is which is the goal over here. To find the depth, we subtract the sense level from the ground level. Now, going back to ToltHawk, how do you enter those settings? The way to do it is to go to your sensor. I'm gonna click. Now, one other important thing is to make sure you are signed in as an admin, because non-admin cannot change these settings. It's only the administrator, the organization's administrator, can do the changes. Once I go to the sensors page, I click on the little gearbox right above the graph, the hydrograph, and select locations. Now, once I go to the locations, I will go ahead and click on this, the third tab from the left, which will give me approximately what we were talking about earlier, the ground level and the sense level. And this is where we actually enter those. The ground height, I guess you call it. So in this case, from the bottom of the sensor to the bottom of the creek or river or whatever water body is, or whatever you want to use at a reference point, that is 9.58 feet. Now, So that's all you need to enter over here. The sea level is again the sea level of the device. What we want to know is what is the sea level of this. Now, this is optional. When you get a survey result, you might enter it later on. In this case, for example, we haven't entered it, but it's okay. When you have those numbers later on, you can enter it, and the main screen will start showing those values. Now, the other thing, the really other important thing to know is going back to your graph. Okay, once I have the depth, I want to know. So I'm gonna just for now, just to make it a little easy to understand, I'm gonna remove the sense level and the ground level because that is no longer important information once you establish the the depth. So the sensor is going to show you the depth of the device. So now the other thing I'm interested, a lot of times people would be interested, is some kind of levels that you want to define. For example, when you want to know, get alerted, for example. So for example, if there is a certain level, say this is a level on which flooding will occur. So if the water ever reaches this level, you want to know that, hey, this is a level 1 flood. And this is kind of you have to establish it. You can come back later on and enter those values later on in the screen. But anyway, I'm gonna enter a couple of levels. One is I'll just call it level 1, and the other one is I'll just call it level 2. And these are the levels. If the water ever reaches either of those levels, you can people who subscribe to this location, they will get an alert. So I'm going to enter 2 levels. One is called level 1, one is called level 2, and will get an alert from the device if the water ever reaches that level. So going back to my original my settings, I'm still at the settings screen. These are the 2 levels. Now it's important to know this is the level. This level is basically the water level we are talking about. Okay, so it can be a little confusing, so just keep that in mind. When I what I call a water level now, or elevation level, it is the depth now I'm talking about. Okay, so these 2 levels, so I'll call this a level 1, and this one will be a level 2. Okay, it so happens that I've already defined it over here. I can do an edit, or you can do add to add a new level, for example. But I'm going to do an edit on and call it level 1, keep it level 1, and how much is the depth of that level. You can define it, what color on the hydrograph that level should display, and how much thickness it is, whether this level triggers an alert, or is it just a level that you want to show on the screen. So this last checkbox defines that, whether you want a trigger or an alert to be triggered when the water reaches that level. Anyway, so I defined one at 4 feet depth. The other one I defined it at say 5 feet depth. And again, this too is an alert. It and it would be a red in color on the hydrograph. Now the third one, I don't want it to trigger an alert. It would be a dashed line, and I want the color of it to maybe be a little bit different. Say, I guess it's bluish, and that is at 7.5 level. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save the changes. Don't forget to save the changes once you do all of this stuff. Okay, and now as you can see, I have a level 1. Anytime the water reaches this level 1, you're going to, if you're subscribed, you will get an alert. If and then for the same thing, if if the water level then reaches level 2, you will get a second alert. And the same way, once the water start receding, you are going to get an alert. Now these alerts will come every couple of hours. um, and then now the third one, which is the first railing that I've defined, it is just a visual indicator. It is not going to trigger an alert because you remember we checked off that box that said alert. So anyway, the important thing to know is how you can mark these different lines.